What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video, and in today's video we're going to be talking about Miss Marvel. So the latest Marvel show on Disney Plus has just come to an end. Miss Marvel, with its first season of 6 episodes, starring many great actors in this show, people like Iman Vellani, Matt Lintz, Zenobia Shroff, Rish Shah, and many more, and tells the story of young Kamala Khan, a Pakistani Muslim girl who becomes a superhero as she is a huge fan of the Avengers. If you're new to the channel, I'd like to welcome you here to the channel. My name is Anthony A. Perez, obviously, and if you guys have not already done so, I want to welcome you to hit that like button, comment your thoughts about this show, this video, whatever you want, and hit that subscribe button, hit the bell icon so you guys are notified for any future videos. And if you're a returning viewer, thank you so much for stopping by once again, and let's get into this. However, before we do jump into this, I do want to say, I usually drop these reviews for seasons or series, whatever the case may be, usually on the day that the last episode dropped, which as of filming this was yesterday. I had a concert that I had tickets for that I ended up going to last night, which was a great time. Went to go see Coheed and Cambria, for anybody who's familiar with that band. It was a really good time. But yeah, I filmed my review for Miss Marvel shortly prior to that, sat down to edit it so I can get the video up for you guys prior to the concert, and found that my audio had been corrupted, entirely just messed up. It has more to do with my mic, if I'm not mistaken. I think I need to get a new mic very soon. This did happen to me a couple of weeks back when I did a series review on Obi-Wan Kenobi, and a very similar thing. Filmed like a 20-minute video, had a lot of energy, had a lot of passion, and then just kind of felt discouraged right after. And this time around, I actually did not have the time to sit down and refilm it, which I think kind of benefits this video now, because I'm kind of coming at it with a refreshed mind, having had a really good time last night and having gotten some really good sleep. With that said, let's get into this. Miss Marvel, for the most part, I enjoyed. I had a good time with this show at the beginning portion of the show, but I'm going to be completely and utterly honest right now and say that it's definitely my least favorite thing to come out in Marvel Phase 4. And that's by no means to say that I dislike this show, but what I will say is that week to week, especially as we got to the last 3 episodes of the show, I found myself a little underwhelmed with where the story was going and what they were doing with the characters. I also felt that the show had kind of lacking character development. There are things like Kamala's parents, who at the beginning of the series are rather strict. Her mother literally telling her in the first episode that she does not trust her. And then in the end of the season, in just a few episodes, her mom has become super okay and open to the idea of her being a superhero. Now, I'm not going to get too deep into spoilers. I should add that I am going to do a quick spoiler section at the end to touch on 2 things. But don't worry, this video will remain spoiler free outside of the 2 little things I want to touch on spoiler wise near the very end. And since I already filmed this video, I kind of just want to cut to the chase and tell you guys what I thought about it. Yeah, overall, I enjoyed the show, as I just mentioned. But yeah, you know, I thought that it just had some lacking character development, and I found myself week to week just less interested in where these characters were going, where the story was going, and there was just a lacking sense of stakes while watching it. There are multiple villains and some villains that show up, or some threats that appear here or there, but I never really felt like it was a huge threat. I always felt like our characters were 110% safe, and I never really found myself ever worried about what was going on. Now, what I will say about this show is that it very much is for a younger audience. I would say that this is the first thing that Marvel Studios has released in the MCU that has been mainly more for a younger audience, teenagers and kids. I saw a lot of hate when the first couple episodes dropped from grown adults, you know, obviously getting really over the top upset about this show, about certain elements, and I just couldn't agree with that, you know what I mean? I grew up watching majority of this comic book related stuff, or playing it in video games, a lot of times in very kid-like things, and things that were very much for a younger audience. Sure, there were some more mature cartoons and some things that kind of treated the source material a little bit more dark, but there was rarely something that ever wasn't for a younger audience, you know what I mean? Especially back in the day when I was growing up, before we got all these movies, there was only really a handful of comic book movies at the time when I was growing up really young. So a lot of those cartoons and different games and things I was playing and watching, whatever the case may be, were all very much for a younger audience. Now, obviously, media has changed. So there's an element to this show that definitely feels a lot more, modern in terms of its dialogue. It's definitely supposed to be about teenagers and for teenagers. And from what I've seen, it seems like a lot of young people are enjoying the show, which I think is a really cool thing. It's nice to have a teenage character here, especially somebody who's Pakistani and Muslim, and I think that just adds to the layers of the various characters that we have in the MCU. I will say that was my favorite part of the show, was the cultural element, was being able to see a character who does have a different culture from majority of the MCU characters. Of course, we've received various other different kind of cultured characters, but majority of them are definitely straightforward, just American characters, or characters that may be from somewhere else but are very Americanized in the MCU, like Natasha Romanoff, who in a lot of other Marvel content before these movies always had a thick Russian accent, but in the movies is American sounding because it's Scarlett Johansson. And so yeah, overall I really enjoyed the cultural element of that part of this show. I liked the music choices. There was a lot to the directing and editing that definitely leaned into that. The performances were really cool, and it was great to have a cast of Pakistani Muslim individuals to make it all feel very natural, real, and culturally accurate. And so yeah, overall enjoyed that element of the show. I like the look, the feel, the vibe. All the directors of the various episodes are Pakistani, I believe, themselves as well, or at least Muslim, which is great. So again, you have that great cultural element, and you can feel that was a real big thing they wanted to really nail with this show, is in terms of the look, the feel, and the tone of the show. Beyond that though, where I really lost interest was just as we got episode by episode, like I mentioned, the story just got more and more boring, and there really wasn't much that I was really gripping myself onto. Now, I did like the finale of the show, but I can say I thought that the 4th and 5th episode were just a little bit underwhelming. It's not to say that I found the performances to be bad, or that I found the special effects to be bad, or that I found the editing or the directing of those episodes to be bad. It was just the writing, really, when it came down to it. There were moments also in some of the performances that it just didn't feel earned, and I think some of that has to do mainly with the writing. I mentioned the example with, Kamala's mother earlier, how it just feels like she kind of flips scripts and goes from being very strict to being very okay with her daughter being the superhero. And the scene where she finds out that Kamala is a superhero, it just felt like the actress gave this very cookie cutter quick performance, and I think a lot of it had to do with the lack of development in who these characters are. And that's not to say that the performances across the season were bad or anything, but there were moments across the season where I found myself feeling that moment didn't feel earned, or I feel like the show wants me to care more about the characters here, or what's happening here between these two characters, and I just can't lie and say that I do. Beyond that, it was great to see a show about an Avengers super fan who finally gets to get her own powers. If you're familiar with Kamala Khan, then you've seen her in shows or things like the Avengers video game, or the comic books, and that's very much her shtick. She's a super fan of the Avengers who becomes part of the superhero world, and I think that they really nailed that. Iman Vellani, who plays Kamala Khan here, who plays Miss Marvel, I thought she was great casting. At first I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about her. She felt a little bit like really silly, goofy teenager, but it leans into it a lot better. I will say that it's one of those things with Marvel movies or comic book movies in general where as the show progressed, she seemed to be really proficient with her abilities and, doing different superhero-esque things, even though she really was still finding her footing in the first couple episodes and could hardly do anything. So there is that bit of a lack of development. And I think that that's really my biggest issue, as you can tell with the show, is a lack of development, whether it's in the characters, in her abilities, in their proficiency with her abilities, whatever the case may be. By the time we got to the final episode and Ms. Marvel is wearing her iconic outfit from the comic books, I just felt like our characters had kind of jumped from one place to the next, not all of them feeling fully earned to have gotten there, and things like the proficiency of Ms. Marvel's abilities and how to do different superhero things. Some of that just felt very rushed to me because it didn't really feel like she had that much experience to get as good as she is by the time we get to the very end of the season. But I did enjoy myself. I had a good time, but I can easily say this is my least favorite Disney Plus Marvel show, and easily my least favorite thing that Marvel has released in this current phase. I didn't think it was bad, I didn't hate it, but it wasn't something that I'm clamoring to rewatch. With that said though, let's move into my spoiler section here, and there's just only really two things that I want to touch on. So if you guys have been watching up to this point and you guys have not seen the show and you don't want to get spoiled on anything, go ahead and leave this video and come back, or don't come back, whatever you want to do. But a big thanks to you guys for watching, and I hope that you guys enjoyed the show at least as much as I did, even if you weren't crazy about it. But I definitely can't wait to hear what you guys have to say down below in the comments. Moving into the spoiler section, in this final episode of the series, we get a quick little tease of the X-Men and Mutants as they are doing a bit of a retcon change on the character of Kamala Khan, and we learn that she actually has mutation in her genes. And as soon as the word mutation is said, you hear the from the 90s X-Men animated show, which is amazing. I was watching it with my fiance and with the Big Rob theory, and the Big Rob theory and I instantly turned to each other and we're like, did you hear that? And we went back and rewound it just to make sure that we heard what we heard. So that's awesome. If this is an introduction to the X-Men and to mutants in this world, I am incredibly excited to see what they do and how they kind of move that moving forward. And then after that, we get the post-credit scene that shows Kamala looking at her arm brace, her bracelet that gives her abilities. She sees that it's lighting up. It's a little bit strange. And then it looks like she ports away as she flies into her closet. And who comes out of her closet? Captain Marvel. Now, I rewound this scene because at first I wasn't entirely sure if it was Kamala Khan turning into Captain Marvel or if she had ported away to a different location and Captain Marvel had replaced her where she was. I believe it's the latter. I believe that was actually Captain Marvel who swapped places with wherever she was and Miss Marvel, and now it's been ported into this bedroom where there's tons of posters of Captain Marvel. It was great to see Brie Larson again in the role, and this is a character in a role that I'm really looking forward to seeing become more defined, because the series ends and we get that, tease that Ms. Marvel will return in The Marvels, which we already know is a movie that's going to be coming out with Captain Marvel, Ms. Marvel, and Monica Rambeau from WandaVision. So when it comes to Captain Marvel, outside of her own movie and her appearance in Endgame and other little cameos here or there, I just don't feel like her character has been fully established the way a lot of other characters had been up to this point in these many movies. So I am looking forward to spending more time with Captain Marvel. Her movie wasn't my favorite. I liked it. I didn't hate it, but I wasn't crazy about it. It isn't one that I'm always clamoring to revisit. Her appearance in Endgame was great, but of course it was Endgame, so pretty much anybody's appearance in that movie could have been awesome. And yeah, I just want to see more from her character. So it is nice to see her appear in a post-credit scene with a character that we know is going to, kind of be a big part of them two working together. So a big thanks to you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Sorry if I seemed a little bit rambly here. It's funny. I started filming this and I had a lot of energy and positivity, and I was sitting here quiet in my living room. And then the second that I got into the review, which you guys didn't see because it got cut out, my dog started drinking water and then he started going through a sneezing attack right after he drank water. And so I kind of just had to hold on some noise that started happening. Some dude outside started, mowing the lawn and blowing leaves, and suddenly for like 5 or 6 minutes, just full-on noise started happening. So there's a lot of this video that actually got cut out because I kept having to stop every few words. So if I seemed a little rambly, that's probably why. All that stuff was cut out, but I was all over the place. So anyway, guys, thank you guys so much for watching. And Miss Marvel, a good time, but not my favorite time in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And but I am still curious to see where they take her character moving forward, especially with the Marvels. So leave your comments down below, guys. Hit that like button, subscribe for more videos, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.